2 years ago, we filmed an appeal to raise money for an election broadcast. My name's Dave Nellis, I'm the National Chair of TUSC, and we're outside Parliament filming the party political broadcast for the 2015 general election, which TUSC gets because we've now got over 130 parliamentary candidates and over 600 council candidates standing in that election. TUSC was set up in 2010, co-founded by the late Bob Crow, the elected leader of the transport union, the RMT, because back then you couldn't get a cigarette paper between the agendas of the main parties. They had an overlapping agenda designed to make ordinary working people pay for the recession that had been caused by the gambling and speculation of the banks. Well, that's all changed. The election of my old backbench colleague Jeremy Corbyn to be leader of the Labour Party has brought radical ideas to the forefront in this election. It's given a glimpse of what society could be like in a socialist direction. A recent study by Cardiff University found that a record 60% of Britons are trapped in poverty by low minimum wages, by rising rents and by cutbacks in housing benefit. TUSC's policy of a £10 an hour minimum wage, a cap on rents and the restoration of benefits could begin to change that. Jeremy Corbyn stands for the same. A whole generation of young people, hundreds of thousands of them, face £50,000 of debt for a 3-year university education. TUSC's policies of ending tuition fees and restoring education maintenance grants would begin to end that. Jeremy Corbyn stands for the same. Workers in Britain face some of the most restrictive employment laws in the industrial world, especially with the Tories' recent Anti-Trade Union Act. Nearly 2 million people are on 0-hour contracts. Prohibitive fees prevent workers getting justice by contesting unfair dismissal at tribunals. There's a 2-year wait before getting even limited legal protection at work. And a pay freeze in the public sector has pushed nurses to food banks and millions of workers into the worst decade for pay for over 200 years. Jeremy Corbyn has promised to change all that. And after 35 years of relentless privatisation of our essential services and industries, Jeremy has promised to renationalise the railways, Royal Mail, water and parts of the electricity industry. That breaks with the tradition of Margaret Thatcher since the 1980s, that only the market can decide, only profit can decide. It opens the door to planning society in the needs and the interests of ordinary working people. Now, that's not to say that TUSC agrees with every policy that Labour is putting forward. We think they were wrong not to support the right to independence in Scotland. We think they were wrong not to follow in the traditions of Tony Benn and Bob Crow and in the referendum last year to argue for a socialist Brexit. And we certainly don't agree with spending £200 billion over the next 30 years on the replacement of Trident. But allowing the Tories back into number 10 Downing Street on June the 9th would condemn millions of ordinary working class families to continued austerity. The withdrawal of free school lunches for the young, a dementia tax on the old, thousands of teachers sacked through education cuts, and maternity wards, accident emergency units and other local essential NHS services cut because of so-called STPs and £22 billion worth of NHS cuts. So TUSC is not standing candidates in this election because Jeremy Corbyn in number 10 Downing Street has promised to change all that. I'm ready. In the 2015 general election, just 1,600 people voting differently in 9 constituencies would have resulted in not a Tory government, but a hung parliament. And we think this election could be close as well. That's why TUSC is asking all socialists and trade unionists to back Jeremy Corbyn. But backing Jeremy Corbyn and his socialist policies is not going to be enough in the battle to change Britain, whatever the parliamentary arithmetic on June the 9th. That battle goes on. Labour is still 2 parties. One, a hangover from the days of Tony Blair, where MPs and councillors don't even support socialist policies, and many of them don't even want to see Jeremy become Prime Minister. And a new Labour Party. From the grassroots, an anti-austerity party in the making. and we know which side we're on. So TUSC is doing all we can to back Jeremy Corbyn in this election. We'll be supporting his socialist policies, his anti-austerity measures against the supporters of the rigged system, whether they're inside or outside the Labour Party, whatever happens on June the 8th. And we hope you will too.